Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time for one of our favorite shows this week with Wendy. The only show where you'll find real talk about the real SoCal estate of mind. With your host, Wendy Ross, who, after decades of working at real estate brokerages in Silicon Valley and Orange County, she decided it was time for something different, and thus was born Veracity Real Estate. Time was ripe for a renewed commitment to bespoke client advocacy at all price levels, something you just don't see in high-cost markets like Southern California. And through it all, as we're going to talk about today, she's built a company of data-driven nerds, real estate, real investment advisors, who are truth seekers and truth tellers. And truth be told, I can't wait to hear what she's got each and every week here. So let's launch and jump into it with Wendy. Wendy, welcome back.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm good. Today is one I've been looking forward for a while. You've got some real truths to tell us here today because your April market reports come out, right?
Yes, I'm just putting the finishing touches on it. And yeah, we're going to dive into that just a little bit today. Talk about what's coming. So you'll be the first to hear.
I don't know if I can wrap my head around what's happened in this market today here. And so anybody that can make sense of it or even explain it to, and that's what I find so shocking. You tell me there's supposed to be 1,500 homes on the market and there's
Right.
5 or something like
Right.
that. That's just, I don't hear that anywhere else. I don't know why nobody's talking about that because that's really what's driving this
yeah.
insanity here.
It's nutty, isn't it? I mean, and granted, yeah, I mean, you know, you can count on me to bring the analysis nobody else is. It's just part of my nature. You know, I'm inquisitive by nature. And part of the way I do that is by surrounding myself with, you know, really smart people. But also I'm constantly doing the deep dive and looking at things from different angles. So to your point, can I help you understand this or make sense of it? Probably not. I'm not sure it makes sense to me, but at least I can shed some light on it.
Yes,
Or we can look
exactly.
at it from a different angle, perhaps.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, I was doing the research for the April report and realized that, okay, so as of the end of April, we had just shy of 9,000 homes available for sale. That's how many we usually have per month.
Yeah, right.
That was for 4 flippin' months.
Yeah.
It's
right.
insane. You know, so can I make this make sense? I'll try.
Well, at least some of the continuing rise in costs, some of this starts to make sense when you dig in and look at the numbers here. Because on the surface, it doesn't seem to make sense. And you say it
You're
can't
right.
happen, can't sustain itself.
But when we start peeling away the layers, you're right, then, you know, the story sort of slowly unfolds.
Right.
And it's interesting because of this, and interestingly, because of last week, the conversation that we had with me and Kara interviewing me, so many people said we want more of that. So we're going to revisit the show a little bit, and we're tweaking the format. And while I love having my guests come and add color and add different perspective to it, there's going to be a little bit more of me. So it's really going to be this week with Wendy.
I think that's a good idea because you've got some really good information and some good ideas and a perspective that I don't hear anywhere else. So you brought Kara back in. Is she gonna help you peel back the onion here, or is she just going to be the voice of the audience and say, "What? Come on."
Probably.
How is that happening?
That can't be.
That can't be true. I'm a little bit of both, but also she knows me well enough. I mean, you know, Kara is my publicist. She knows to keep me from going too far down the rabbit hole. So she'll keep me on track. Because I get into like serious nerddom and I can fall into a silo and I can't get back out. So
I also like to think I bring the voice of the people because you live and breathe these numbers and these demographics. And what's so interesting is that while maybe people are talking about the numbers and whether or not there's going to be a residential real estate crash, and yes, they understand that Orange County is graying and the silver tsunami is coming, people aren't necessarily making the connections between the two headlines.
Right.
And that's the point of the analysis that you're doing here, of going behind the numbers and this deep dive.
and kind of, yeah, the why behind it exactly. And so for those of you who missed us last week, that was the voice of the lovely Kara Stewart. So she's not only a very good friend of mine, she started her career in journalism as a reporter. She's been a serial entrepreneur. She's launched dozens and dozens of businesses. She's the founder and CEO of Alta Lunas Media. And as I mentioned, she is my publicist and she is the chief brand officer for Veracity Real Estate Company, my company. So Thanks, Kara.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's a great ride, and it really helps us tie together everything that we're doing in the community for nonprofits, for your clients of home buyers and home sellers. And I'm just always fascinated by the real estate investment angle. Having, I'm an Orange County native. All of my businesses have at least been birthed here, even if they've traveled outside.
They've grown wings and
They've
flown
grown
away.
wings and flown away. And so this is as much as it is for me as it is for you.
Well, and something too that I find really rewarding is that I know I'm helping my clients and their families build generational wealth. I know this. I've done this long enough that I've seen it, and I've had them come back to me and just share their joy over what they've grown and developed. And what you're doing with Alta Luna is creating this ecosystem where you are intent upon helping, focused heavily on women business owners, to support our community in a variety of ways that promote health, and one of them is financial health. And so, of course, I love that we can speak to that together because it's a big part of what we do.
Thank you so much for the opportunity for that. And you're right. Our philosophy always is, if you can start with helping people to become financially secure and financially independent, a lot of other things fall into place after that.
Yeah, it's a great launch pad. So it's fun to see what people do with it and what they do with their lives. So as we said, we're going to have other people speaking with us, but for now.
Well, what if we do this, Wendy, before we get into really what the market is? You mentioned your April market report. Usually at this point in this show, you talk about simply what happened last week, the raw numbers. So let's start there, and then we can compare and contrast, and also look at what's going to be happening for the rest of the year a little bit. Yes, I'm going to force you to be a fortune teller again.
Okay, I'll polish the crystal ball real quick. But for now, last week, we saw 461 new housing units come on the market. So we had 461 new listings. That was down 5.5% over the week before. A little disappointing because as we ramp up and head into summer, we want to see these numbers increase week over week and month over month. They're wobbling up and down for a variety of reasons, and we'll get into that. We did put 575 homes into escrow, so under contract. That was up 17.6% over the week before. And that does, again, sort of make sense because it's the last week of the month and there's always a bit of a push at the end of the week. However, given that it was the last week of the month, we normally see a lot of the escrows hurry to close before month end for various reasons. And we only had 581 sales close last week. That was down 3.5% over the week prior. But truly, functionally, I think this is because there just weren't any more to close. There just weren't any more deals to be had. We maintained 7 days on market, and in my April report, I did a little bit of tripping down memory lane, and I looked up some of my old reports, and normally this time of year, that would be 40 days. So 7 days is ridiculously, obscenely, abnormally fast. I just can't come up with enough words for this. It is too stinking fast. It is beyond volatile. It's insane. Median price bumped back up to 1.1 million last week. So that was a 4.8%, nearly a 5% bump over the week before. So it's bobbling along between 1 million and 1.1. I'm curious to see if in summer this shoots up or if we just maintain some stability because there's all of this confusion out there.
And at 1.1, I imagine, we're getting a 5-bedroom on an acre of land, gorgeous estate, right?
Maybe in Wisconsin. I mean, not even in Riverside County. No, I mean, it used to be. There was a great article, and I'll get into that a little bit later. There was a great article that talked about how you used to be able to get a 5-bedroom, 4,000 or 5,000 square foot house in Riverside County for $1 million, and that's been shrunk down to about 3,200 square feet. So, yeah, the dollar is not stretching nearly like it used to. And what's interesting is that our list price to close price ratio, so meaning what the sellers asked and what they actually got, it's still at 110%. So last week, we trended 10% above what they were asking. And believe me, sellers aren't asking less than they used to. They're continuing to ask more, and they're continuing to get more. So the heat is very, very much on and staying with the market. It's going to be a really, really contentious summer if this continues.
Well, let's get into that. You've touched upon certainly what happened last week and how it relates to your April market report. And in the residential real estate, summer is always such an important time. You've mentioned it a couple points. So I have a couple questions there. So first of all, as we're ramping up to summer, you noted that last week having 7 median days to sell on the market is volatile. Usually, and you looked this up in previous reports, you were at 40 days. Why is that so dangerous? You know, hypergrowth is good, right, Wendy? Like being able to cycle through and do more faster and hack the system, that's good, right?
You know, I'm not necessarily saying this is bad. What I am saying is this is a superheated market, which is like a freight train flying downhill. And so for all those naysayers out there saying, okay, well, interest rates are going up. We hear from media reports that more sellers are coming onto the market. Therefore, we're going to sit back on our heels and wait for the market to cool before we do anything. That's where I think the trouble lies, because they're not understanding in my analysis of the post-crash correction of 0809, the correction didn't come for a couple of years. It took a while for the market to bottom out, for all the for the chum fest, if you will, to subside, and for real buyers to re-enter the market. So that really didn't start until 2012 or 2013. And price acceleration didn't start happening really like we're seeing now in COVID. We're seeing this incredible month over month, year over year now ramp up in pricing that we hadn't seen since going back 10 years to 2012. And in 2012 going to 2013, even then we didn't see the rapid price acceleration start until days on market fell to 36. That was the bottom. That was the fastest homes had sold in months and months and months.
36 days
36 days.
was the fastest.
Correct. We're at 7. Their homes are selling so fast. And what that means, it's not just, oh, okay, homes are selling fast. That is an indicator that there are loads and loads and loads of buyers fiercely competing. It's the buyer pressure that's making things go faster. It's not just because people are walking up going, oh, I'll take that one. We're not just becoming more decisive.
We'll go into that a little bit more, because the number last week, and granted this was a moment in time from 1 week of the month, you said that we were up 110% list price to close price ratio, which means that buyers were actually going above and beyond what sellers anticipated.
Yes. Again,
why are we doing this?
because there's so little to choose from, and we have the largest pool of human beings now living and walking the planet, the millennials. They are a massive, massive segment of our population, and they are here, and they are working, and they must live somewhere. It's not negotiable. I mean, they have to live somewhere. You know, and in the absence of building more homes, which we are not doing, and you know how I feel about that. That's a whole nother conversation we will have another day about NIMBYs.
I was going to say, are we going to invite some of our favorite NIMBYs on for that
Oh,
episode?
we should
Yes.
do like a point counterpoint.
All right, NIMBYs, we're interviewing for spots right now. If you would like to be on our show to tell us why there should not be new home construction in Orange County, send in your questions, pitch yourself.
Oh yeah,
We want to know why you're thinking this.
Yeah, well, or elaborate. Tell me why it can't be in your backyard, but it can be in mine. For the love of Pete, people, we're not building enough houses. We say that we want a stable economy. We say that we want to have this med tech business here. We say that we want to have all these professional financial services here. These people must live somewhere. And that's the problem. The jobs are here. The people are coming for the jobs. We've done a great job in terms of a county as attracting talent, but we don't have a place for them to live. And they are competing fiercely because they want to be here. They want these jobs. They want this weather. They want to be here. And then, of course, the senior citizens, you know, like you're saying, the silver generation, the what was it, the great wave or the silver wave?
The silver tsunami.
The silver tsunami. Yeah, they're not leaving.
No. And to your point about the great economy here and the attractiveness of not only living here but working here, Orange County has done a great economic development job in attracting major corporations. And these knowledge workers and thought workers do employ people longer, and people are not retiring and choosing not to. It's a very different generation than one generation ago. So you have in the workforce up to 4 generations, which is just unheard of right now.
Right. And, you know, we can't underscore, we can't overstate, the importance of where we're sitting right now. We're at the Cove at UCI. What do they do here? They
Invent tomorrow.
they incubate brilliant minds and create new businesses, often in med tech. Again, inventing tomorrow. We are in the epicenter of what I'm talking about. We've got all these people coming here to incubate these brilliant ideas and create these companies, which will then what? Have to hire more people. They're going to bring more people here. Where are we going to put them? I mean, the current pressure on the housing is frightening. And what's sad is that we are becoming like San Francisco, like New York. And when you look at those markets where this has already happened, Silicon Valley is something for us to pay attention to, people. Suddenly, overnight, thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs were created, and all the people went to live there. Homes up there are almost twice as expensive as they are here. It's the same state. It's the same general economy. So do we actually want to delude ourselves and think there's going to be a crash, there's going to be a correction of this? I think that's naive.
And we jokingly said earlier about what a $1 million home would be able to buy here. But I believe it was just this week the Orange County Register published an article talking just about that.
They did. It was actually.
What did you learn from it?
It was a great article, by the way. It was called "How Much House Can You Get for $1 Million?" And it was jointly written by Jeff Collins and Sandra Barrera. And if you're listening, you guys, you rock. That was a really, really well researched and well written article. I loved it. And basically, what it said is that we now have 39 zip codes in Orange County where the median price is at or above $1 million. Orange County is a tiny county. We're about the third the size of LA County. That's frightening. And we used to be the redheaded stepchild, if you will, in terms of everything was cheaper here because we weren't as sexy and modern and powerful as LA. Well, it's changing.
And we were behind that orange curtain.
We were behind the famous orange curtain.
The famous orange curtain.
Yeah. So, it's a phenomenon, and if we expand our perspective, which I do, I tend to get hyper analytical, and I can spend days and hours looking at real estate data. This isn't confined to Orange County. It's not confined to SoCal. It's not confined to California, nor is this phenomenon confined to the U.S. We are seeing price escalation and housing issues in terms of affordability globally.
And that's important because you do work with international investors. So you are seeing not only this microcosm of Orange County, but this macro view of how people who are looking, again, go back to the generational wealth and to invest it and to spread it to the hottest markets. You're seeing that that's happening globally.
Yeah. And we are becoming global citizens. Yes, COVID did, throw a wrench in that, and a lot of people didn't travel as much as they would have. But for example, a gentleman friend of mine has 3 grown sons. 2 of them don't live in the U.S. One's in Vietnam and one's in Australia, and they're working remotely and they're doing what they're doing there. And what we're hearing reports of is that housing's getting exponentially more expensive there. Poland, I know a few months ago, reached a peak in housing expense that no one foresaw coming. That kind of sounds like Warsaw. Anyway, Freudian moment there. Scandinavian countries are seeing the same thing. England is seeing the same thing. Before the Ukrainian crisis, of course, most of Eastern and Central Europe has reported the same thing. So, yeah, this is something that we're stuck with. And what we need to do is determine if we're going to get off our heels and get in the game and put our homes up for sale or not. And if you have a home that you don't intend to live in forever, you might want to think about what your plan is.
So of course, being able to have an advanced copy of your upcoming market research report, one of the lines stood out to me. And it was essentially, as long as buyer pressure remains strong, prices will also remain strong. This has been reflected in OC's median price reaching $1.1 million last week. Is this going to be an anomaly, though? Please tell us this year is going to be an anomaly. Are these the trends that are going to be seeing and playing out year after year?
I would say last year was the anomaly. 2021 broke records in crazy ways. The number of homes that we sold versus the few of the homes that we had available. We saw things like 59 and 60% absorption rate of available inventory. And that flies in the face of a normal 30 to 34% absorption. And what I mean by that is if there's 1,000 homes for sale, we would normally sell 300 or 340. Whereas last year when we had 1,000 homes for sale, we sold 600. So that really was, I think, the gorilla in the marketplace. So far this year, we're not quite as hot as that, but that doesn't mean things are crashing. It just means they're a little bit less freaking insane. So this year, it's going to be a lot more of the same. I mean, we're already at pace where we're selling through 52% of the inventory, and we're not even into the peak season yet.
What is the traditional peak season?
Traditionally, it's June, July, and even though normalcy has something we haven't been familiar with for 3 years now, we do still see these bell curves, in the calendar in terms of how many homes sell when, and we do have fewer. At the end of the year and into the Q1 of any year, it peaks Q3, at the end of Q2 into Q3, and then it starts to taper down again into Q4. So, what I think is going to be our best indicator is the list price to sales price ratio.
Yeah.
Because sellers are going to continue to be aspirational, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to sell their house and get top dollar, especially if they need to buy another house and they need top dollar to buy the next one? So, of course, they're always going to be as aggressive as they reasonably can with their asking price. What is anomalous of late is this. I have never in my career seen a 12-month trend where the sold price was higher than the list price consistently month after month for a year. You'll see it 1 or 2 months, and then sellers are like, we overreached, and then it backs off. And then, okay, maybe another month, and then it backs off the following month. It's a little herky-jerky. It's like, okay, we get more, we ask more, we get less. And it's just sort of this
So
kind
this
of...
12-month run-up is really something that's never happened in history, to your knowledge.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Forever.
Never, ever. Never, ever. No. So, sorry, Miss Jackson.
All right, and as you said, again, dipping into the report, there's, as of this writing, homes who are still selling 5 to 10% above list prices. List prices continue to soar and climb, but there's this pool of qualified buyers is behind this, right?
Right.
So what is this looking like? You've already said the millennials are out in force. They've been held back for so long. They're trying to now finally the late start to their homes and their families and all of the other things that we understand. But today's buyers face a very different environment than buyers did even 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
Certainly different than a generation ago. What does that look like? How are they being able to qualify? I've heard you say, well, you have to prove your ability to pay. I remember when I bought my first house, even I was laughing hysterically, like, really? You're going to let me buy a house?
Right.
I have no ability to actually
Right.
pay this every month. And they let me do it.
And that was the backbone, honestly, of all the reforms that came after that last meltdown, was lenders were not allowed to give someone a loan based upon the collateral alone. They had to establish ability to repay the loan. And strangely, that was missing from the equation before. So go figure. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, come on. I think we saw what could go wrong. So obviously that's out the window. Reforms have said, okay, no, we really have to prove that you can afford this. And if not proving it through show us your paycheck stubs, prove it by showing us your bank statement so we can see, 24, 36 months worth of money in your bank account. That is proof of assets. That's proof of cash flow, whether or not it's directly a paycheck. So, and technology has really, really aided banks in both quickly verifying, yep, the money's still in the account. Yep, they still have that job. And, oh, no, that looks like fraud. So they're weeding out the bad guys faster. And there's just not as much opportunity for shaky loans to happen now. So how are buyers qualifying for higher than ever prices? Something that I pointed out after 2009, 2010. I noticed in Orange County when I arrived at the beginning of the millennia that it was not okay to act as if you were poor. I know this is shocking for some ears, but bear with me. It was not cool to act like you couldn't afford everything you wanted.
fake it till you make it. Have you ever heard that spoken in Orange County?
I had never seen so many leased Bentleys in my flippin' life. I was like, what are you doing? Why do you have $1,000 car payment? What the hell is the matter with you? So this abruptly shifted when the market melted down, and suddenly it became chic to talk about how much money you were able to write off in your short sale. Like, oh, well, the bank wrote down $1 million, so we walked away from $1 million in debt, and suddenly austerity was chic.
And the rise of thrifting, for example.
Hmm. I think we drifted away from that a little bit, and austerity chic is back. I'm really impressed by how many of my first-time buyers share a car. They're couples, and they're either married or living together. And no judgment, but they are each other's people, and they're sharing cars, and they're not ashamed of it, or they're doing social ride sharing. You and I participated in something that I see people are doing now, and that was wardrobe share, bringing clothing, because a lot of us changed size during COVID. It was
I have
unfortunate.
no idea what you're talking about, Wendy.
I know I got smaller. Anyway, right, all right. A little comedy moment. Anyway, but we all came together and we shared clothes that no longer fit us with one another. And whereas there would have been shame or a little reluctance to do that in the past, what I'm seeing is people now are understanding, if I want to be able to pay my housing payment, I may have to sacrifice a car. I may have to not buy the new clothes. I may have to skip the Starbucks, and I'm seeing that they're doing this.
So they're having a shift in mindset of perhaps prioritizing their housing investment versus all of the other visible trappings of what we used to consider to be a carefree lifestyle or a wealthy lifestyle.
Right.
What other role are buyers and sellers playing today? Because I know you're counseling them on both sides of the equation a whole lot. You're talking about, I've heard you say about sellers who have this fear of trading their low mortgage rates for higher property taxes. We went over that a little bit last week. But what else are buyers and sellers doing right now that you want to be able to shake them to say, stop doing this? It's actually harming you in the near term, and harming our residential real estate economy in the longer term.
I know where you're going with this. Can I put a pin in that?
Of course.
I want to just supplement what we were just talking about with buyers and how they're making this affordable. Anybody who's a sociology wonk, start checking out these articles and these papers that are coming out that are talking about the millennials and how they're both putting off getting married till later in life, and they're putting off having kids until later in life. And I cannot emphasize strongly enough that children are expensive. And I think millennials are actually, or people, I don't want to label whomever, I think as a population, human beings now are putting off having children longer for fiscal reasons.
Yes. Fiscal reasons and concern about the world in which their children will be born.
I can't imagine who would be worried about that. Putin. All right, it's not a political show. I just had to drop that bomb in there. Okay, so what other roles do I see buyers and sellers, or sellers and buyers, doing that makes me want to shake them till they rattle? Not that I would ever do that.
If I may put a pin in that back at you, because you actually brought up something. So, we know there is this global trend of delaying childbirth and families, even getting married, moving out, all of these things. But as these families finally are able to, or couples and small families are able to move into what used to be their starter homes, traditionally they would move out of it when their families grew. A lot of them aren't able to do that anymore, right?
Right.
So that's even shifting the dynamic of looking at one's home, perhaps staying in it longer, turning to remodeling, trying to make the space they're in work for their growing family, which is also a shift, because before they would just abandon that house and move up and trade into a different, but that was a life cycle as well. Get married, have
You're
the kid,
right.
have children, have a few more children, move up again, kids go off to college, empty nesters, then they start to downsize again.
Yeah, and we're seeing that again through the numbers, because numbers don't lie. I love my data. It used to be in Orange County that homes would turn or resell after 6 or 7 years. We're at 11 years now. So clearly they're staying put longer, and they're making the most of what they have. And this is definitely why I can't get a contractor to save my life. They're so busy. They're out there doing all these tweaks and home improvements, and I don't know if they're adding safe rooms or what they're doing, but definitely soundproof rooms, right? Because people are working remotely, and
Zooming.
they're
Yeah.
zooming, man. They're zooming from home. All right, so where were we?
All
Oh,
right, let's go back into buyers and sellers, what
yes.
you want them to know, because I do want to make sure we spend just a few minutes on this show to talk about where do you get this information? Because it is so different than others are reporting, either in headlines or from either other brokers and realtors. But
Fair.
let's get into that 1 second. So to finally, you can answer the question about buyers and sellers and what you need them to know.
Okay. Um, the biggest issue that I see now, and to your point when you pose the question, they're getting in their own way because there is enough wealth here. Would-be sellers, and I call them would-be sellers, are saying, I'm not going to sell my house until I find the replacement. So I'm just going to keep this one off the market, and I'm going to go and I'm going to gobble up that one over there. So, and then they complain that there's nothing to choose from. It's because all the sellers are doing the same thing. Like, put your dang house on the market, will you? We will protect you. We will write the listing that says you're not vacating it until you get the replacement property. But if all the sellers would just do that, it would add so much more inventory to the market. But truly, literally, a third of the people who are repurchasing in our marketplace fall into this category. They're sitting on the departure property. Stop it. Just stop it already. Put the dang house on the market.
Put the house on the market.
Moving on.
All right, this data, this gold mine, this treasure trove. Why is it credible? Where do you source it?
Okay, so there have been a lot of aspersions cast upon the MLS, the multiple listing service. That is my source of choice, and it has changed a lot in the last 20 years. Primarily, I think people who are my age and older, I'm in my 50s, loud and proud, we remember that MLS services were very compartmentalized. Like there was a Laguna Beach multiple listings MLS that didn't share data with the Newport Beach MLS, and they didn't share data with the Orange County General, Association. It was crazy, but all of these people have learned to play nicely together. The data is all aggregated. It's pooled together in one nice handy dandy place. And then there were those who would say, oh yeah, but what about these distress sales and short sales and foreclosures and all this shadow inventory from the banks? Well, lenders have learned that they can sell assets that they foreclosed on for a top dollar when more people are aware it's for sale. How do you do that? You put it in the MLS. So now when institutions own real estate, they mandate that it get listed in the MLS. So now it has become actually the most complete source of information. And yes, I know there are people out there going, oh, wait a minute, but my neighbor sold and he didn't use an agent and was all off the market. Yeah, that's going to happen. There's going to be a few of those, but less than 1%. So to have a data pool that's 99% accurate, I'll take it.
But it's only as accurate as input, right? Because a human being actually manually enters this.
Garbage garbage out.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, well, okay. So, and I know you've heard me scream on occasions when because the way it works for a real estate person, we can go into this MLS treasure trove of data and say, I want to look for all homes in Orange County that are detached, that have at least a 7,000 square foot lot or whatever. I can describe whatever search criteria I'm looking for, and poof, up comes this list. And invariably, when I'm scrolling through these listings, I'll find one that is very clearly an attached property, but some bonehead just ticked the wrong box and called it detached. So yeah, the data is not perfect. It is not sanitized. Certainly, there's very little oversight. We actually have to report on one another, like, hey, dear MLS board, this person screwed up. And often you'll see things subtle, like a listing agent will have a property that they're selling and it's fully detached. There are no common walls, and they see that the zoning says condominium and they see that that's wrong. So they then describe it as a single family residence. That too is erroneous, because single family residence and condominium do not describe what the property looks like. They describe the legal definition of the property. And that can vary from city to city. So don't think this stuff's easy, people. I mean, we actually have to know our stuff in depth. So the legal definition of a single family residence, or an SFR, is that you own the structure, the building, and a specifically defined piece of dirt upon which that structure sits. In a condominium, you can have a fully detached structure, and of course it's sitting on dirt somewhere, but with a condominium, you don't own that exact piece of dirt upon which it sits. Like you couldn't walk out your front door and say, that's my land, because it's not. It's more of a commune. Each condominium owner owns a proportional interest of the land upon which all of the community sits. So that is the distinction. And different cities have different rules about when you can call it a single family residence. And if you can't call it a single family residence, which usually means the house is too big, the lot is too small, they don't like that there's not enough land left over, they're going to make you call it condo. So they're going to make you call it a commune. And that happens when it's being built and developed. It's not like something you can change later. It is what it is, what it is. So a lot of data analysts and a lot of my compatriots may pull data for single family residences only to compare those trends to condominiums. And I'm not disparaging that, because the two property types do tend to move differently. I would say more commonly attached and detached move more differently. And that is one way to study the data. But because my job is not to be a data analyst, my job is to sell houses, I choose to put it all in one bucket, and I just go into the MLS data and I say, I want to look at only Orange County, everything you want to call residential. Just give me everything. And that's going to encompass anywhere someone's likely to live. Condos, single family residences, mobile homes, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes. Those are all going to be in that bucket.
And that's why you often aren't making a distinction among them, because of the various types of properties are labeled differently in different cities. And you're really looking at what the buyers need and want, regardless of how it's labeled in there.
Yeah. And I'm just studying the phenomenon of housing.
Yes.
And I'm talking about the phenomenon of housing. And because I pull the data the same way with the same search criteria, my trend analysis is accurate. But you may see, like in Stephen Thomas's housing reports, he may say that there was 3,200 houses on the market, and I may say that there was 3,600. Well, it's because we're pulling data with different criteria. He may be excluding quadruplexes. I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm just saying. But the trends will be consistent, and the market movement will be consistent, because what we're watching in the same way individually. And if I do want to see the difference between like SFRs and condos, I might pull up an industry data source like CoreLogic. CoreLogic does a great job of a Southland market report, and anybody can go to dqnews.com and look at that themselves if they want to. And it will show you the difference in price appreciation by county and by city for Southern California, SFR versus condo. So, if that's your joy, go crazy.
And I learned in reading your report and having some time to play with MLS, Orange County used to have yurts listed as an actual dwelling type. Paul, did you know that?
No, I'm not even sure what a yurt is.
Do you know what a yurt is, first of all? Yeah, this indoor cat had to look it up and thought it was a joke, and it's not.
I seriously did when I first moved to Orange County, and I saw
They listed yurts? Isn't that something they do
Yes.
like in Mongolia or something?
a yurt
Aren't they
is
built in trees or something like
it's
that?
like half tent, half wooden structure.
We're going to get hate mail from the Yurt Lobbying Association.
And you know
I
what?
think so,
I am
yeah.
not disparaging yurts. I simply am an urbanite, and when I moved
I
here,
might be.
I did not know what a yurt was, so I had to look it up. And somehow someone must have realized there are no yurts in Orange County, because suddenly that property type is no longer a searchable option in our MLS.
Wow, so yurts have disappeared.
Yurts have disappeared.
Okay.
However, before we turn it over to Paul, if you own a yurt in Orange County, we want to hear from you.
Call us.
We have so many questions. Please call, send photos, videos.
Let's do a show.
Let's go there.
Yeah.
Road trip.
Exotic housing styles.
Yeah.
Do you live in a tree house? Inquiring minds want to know.
Your Villa Park neighbors probably don't like you if you do.
Hey.
We even want to hear from you more.
But
then.
let us not hate, because I have a listing coming up in the Temecula Valley area, and they have a very, very, very sexy treehouse with
You're
a
kidding,
kitchen
really?
and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
A kitchen and everything?
Well,
in it? Real?
kitchenette, of course.
A real house. Yeah. Not just a little boarded up shack. Right.
We got to keep it interesting, keep it spicy, right?
Okay.
So, Paul, would you tell us about our sponsor? And I know you have a few questions before we let Wendy go this week.
I do. Well, before I get into my questions here, nobody should have a question about the world of that you built around you here, the network of strategic partners. It includes our sponsor today, Ford and DiUlio. Ford and DiUlio, as we've said many times, is an Orange County-based boutique litigation firm with experienced attorneys from the big law firms. The founders who put together Ford and DiUlio did so on the concept of aligned interest, something that they see where their success is related to your success. where they're rewarded for being efficient and effective and not just for dragging it out forever, and where they engage in the relentless pursuit of their own clients' goals, whether in litigation, mediation, or at trial. If that's something you find missing, if that's something you'd like to find out more about, simple, FordDiulio.com, FordDiulio, FordDiulio.com. All right, with that, you asked the question I was going to ask, which is, where do you get all this stuff? Because I don't know where it all resides. I didn't know there was once a category for yurts.
I can search for boat slips if you want me to.
What about alternative things? What about these things? What do they call them? Advanced something, auxiliary dwelling units?
ADUs.
Accessory
ADUs.
dwelling units.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes, that's not a searchable field yet, but I think we should ask for that.
Because they passed a law a while ago, and I thought we would see something, and I don't see them anywhere. Nobody's talking about this idea. You can put, to me, it's like a granny shack, a granny home in the backyard or something.
Yeah, but we can't say the G word anymore.
No, okay. All right, no. All right, grandpa, I'm a grandpa. I can
In
say
this
it.
age of political correctness, it's really nuts what I can and cannot
But it was
say.
a place that you typically put your mom, your dad as they get older. It was a place that they lived in. It had its own kitchenette and a bathroom and everything. It
Yeah.
was a little extra
Yeah.
room. And people, I don't know if the world has come down on that yet, if there's a general opinion. Does that create more density, more undesirable low-income people renting these things in the backyard? Or is this the salvation that we're all looking for here, where it's a little extra income to help pay for this, and it's a place to put mom or dad rather than a nursing home?
See, I agree with everything you just said. I think it is likely a two-sided coin. And one side is, yeah, it's low-income housing because it's a tiny little house in your backyard, for the love of
right.
Pete. It's not going to be the highest rent in the world.
No.
So yes, you're going to get people who have lower income renting it. Cause and effect, people. This is common sense. And people like me, I have an ADU. It's been there since we bought the house. It's never been vacant. I mean, I had family there for years. I finally have an actual tenant in it. Very good friend.
Yeah. pretty good tenant.
I may know that person very well.
All right, truth's out. Kara's my tenant.
And I can espouse the beauty of ADUs and this particular ADU. If anyone knows me, philosophy-wise, I am a minimalist, and it is a perfectly designed, true, tiny home, self-contained. And I think anyone who's listening to this who has doubts about tiny homes and their ability to help solve our housing crisis really needs to take a look at this, because it is a glorious way of living that is conducive to all of one's needs and can actually help solve our housing crisis.
And for different people at different points in their life,
Right.
like your aging mom, or are you going to take a bedroom, or are you going to take the dining room? We don't have dining rooms anymore. Are you going to take the family room someplace downstairs because she can't walk upstairs,
Right.
and try and convert into something? Or you had your friend was in here talking about converting garages rather into these spaces.
Janine, right. Well, and something too that I think maybe people don't think about when it's not happening in their family, when it's your relative, regardless of relation, but when it's your relative who is aging and needs a place to be, it's a little inelegant to put them in a guest room as if they're your child.
Yeah.
This is an adult human being.
Right.
They want a little privacy, please.
Right.
Can I make my own snacks without you like jumping up and getting something for me? It's like, I'm not dead yet.
And I think there's an maybe honor is a strong word, but it's honoring them. It's not saying, okay, you're totally helpless now and you're just going to lay in a bed in the back bedroom here.
Yeah, and I think too,
Dignity. You're going to give them a little dignity. Right.
and it's a reciprocal relationship, because many
Right.
times when we have this other generation living in our ADU or a guest house, casita's a nice way of putting it. They're often doing as much of a service to the younger generations, watching the kids. In my case,
Absolutely.
watching my pet.
Yeah.
Right.
It takes a village.
It does take a village, and
Yeah.
I love that. Now we co-parent my dog.
Well,
So,
I could
yeah.
see myself living in one of those one day if it had some separateness to it, if I felt some independence about it,
Yeah.
but yet I was close enough somebody could help me.
You can be there to be useful to them. They can be there to be useful for you.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
win-win. And you make a fine point. I really will say something to the MLS board, because they're constantly evolving and adapting, and they really do need to make ADU a searchable field, because it's onerous to try to find them now.
And I think it also is a way to pay for the exorbitant prices because now you've got another little income. You're helping somebody. You got a little. It's a benefit all the way around. Again, if it can accommodate, these neighborhoods weren't built for more cars and more people necessarily, whatnot. So there's some downside to that. But I could see there's lots of people in my neighborhood, for example, who still live in a house, and there's only one, maybe two people living in the house. And once it was built for 4 or 5 for family.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. You're making me think about this, but I actually have 2 listings that are coming on the market. One more imminently in a couple of weeks in Eastside Costa Mesa. And when they did their remodel, they added a really lovely ADU upstairs. So, and the other one, as I mentioned, has a treehouse. I'm not kidding, but it's a fully functional,
How
effectively
cool
an
is that?
ADU.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so 2 of my listings coming up already have this, and I'm really proud of them for doing that. You know, and they did it for different reasons, multi-generational in both cases. You know, so even if we shouldn't look at it, I think, as, oh, well, they're just doing it for their own family. Well, yes, and that means that family is not competing with you for a rental, so you're welcome.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
it's a win. It's a win. Build the ADUs, people.
Okay. All right.
More
Well, that was
housing,
my
please.
question.
All right, then. We are almost out of time, Wendy.
It goes so fast.
It goes so fast.
Did I
but
say that much?
we'll be back next week. Don't
All right,
worry. But before we do, we've always had a tradition also about talking about community partnerships. And your company, Veracity Real Estate, is a strong community supporter, and we like ending the show with 1 or 2 plugs about some of the nonprofit work you're doing or some upcoming events. So what do you want listeners and others in Orange County to know?
Can't say enough about Shea Center. Shea is an equestrian center where they actually practice hippotherapy, and I did not know that did not mean they use hippos. They do not. Hippotherapy means it's horse therapy. I didn't know that hippopotamus was Latin for horse.
Does that mean water horse then?
Water horse. Right. Okay. See, I am that blonde. Anywho, Shea Center uses horses for physical and occupational therapy for children and adults, and they do incredible work. I mean, some of these children with MS and muscular dystrophy and these types of things take their first steps after being on horses. You know, they learn core balance. They learn how to walk. People who have had strokes learn to adapt and have a normal life.
The animals seem to sense them, and they seem to sense there's a connection there that they say you can't imagine until you're there, but these animals feel them, sense them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is the most beautiful thing. If anyone has not gone to Shea Center, you need to go take a tour. I mean, call them and get yourself down
Don't
there
they
and have
take
a
like
look at it.
blind kids and put them on horses too, I think, or something?
I believe so, because
Yeah.
they have therapists standing on both sides and
Right.
in back and sometimes
So
one
to
in
experience
front.
something that you didn't think you could otherwise experience.
The liberation they give to these people, young and old, is incredible. And only 11% of the therapy they provide is paid for through fee for service. So the rest of it is all through donation. And their big gala, and they throw a really nice party, is June 25th at the Montage Resort. There's still time to get tickets, but not very many. So go to Shea Center. Just look it up, sheacenter.org, I believe, in San Juan Capistrano, and go and support. You will see me there.
We had them on one of our shows, our Impact OC, our public affairs show, where we try and highlight different charities, and I was amazed. I really didn't know anything about them, and the more they talked, the more I was
It's
intrigued.
incredible work. And they do a lot of work also with veterans and veterans' families.
Yes, right.
So, and that's a nice tie over for me, because you all know my late husband was a Marine and very proud of it. You may not know, Paul, he actually was raised in Australia. He came back to the U.S. specifically to be in the U.S. military,
goodness,
like
no.
his father, because he was a military brat. He's a U.S. citizen, because his father was an American Air Corpsman, actually. So, so we were very passionate about anything that benefits our service people. And Antoinette Balta is co-founder of Veterans Legal Institute, and she's become one of my dear friends because of the incredible advocacy that they provide. Ford and DiUlio, my key sponsor, they're very involved with Veterans Legal Institute. And Veracity Real Estate, my company, underwrites their auction for their annual gala, which is in November. November 9th, is it?
And,
November 9th.
And Alta Lunas is the media partner for VLI as well. So all of us are supporting our veteran
Helping
community.
them get more exposure. It's incredible. Their gala is going to be at the Lion Air Museum, and I absolutely cannot wait.
What a cool place. Yeah.
Such a cool place.
Right over at the airport here, General Lyon, who built Coda de Casa. Yeah,
Yep.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, and what
Paul,
a
you'll have to join
philanthropist.
us.
I would love to, because I'm an old World War II buff. My father was a bomber pilot in World War II, so they have a B-17 or like my dad flew.
That's fantastic.
So I've taken my grandkids and stuff. This is what your great-grandfather
All right.
did.
Well,
Yeah.
Paul, you and anybody who's listening, if you have really, really cool memorabilia or anything that you can donate as an auction item for either of these important charities, please get in touch with me, because we need every dollar to help them fund the services that they provide. And
Yeah.
they provide really, really important services.
We'll
The
have to
Shea
come up
Center
with
is helping
something.
people be healthy. VLI is helping people get access to health care and jobs and legal support to prevent homelessness. For mental health care. I mean, really, really critical services. So we need all the support we can get, either in terms of dollars or time. And in my world, anyone who has a gorgeous vacation home somewhere that you're willing to let someone auction it for a weekend or perhaps a week stay at your property, please, please, please let us know. Reach out to me at wendy@realveracity.com and let's put something on auction for you and from you so you can do your bit to do good.
And real quick with that, now that people are traveling again, another way to maximize your investment is if anyone could donate points and miles.
Oh, great
Because
point.
that's
Yeah,
paired
right.
with the vacation homes, and it can be a really nice package that generates a lot of funds for
So
our
for your
nonprofits.
gorgeous house in Vail, we can get them airfare there. Great idea. So yeah, let's all just come together as a community and support these and other important causes. If we all pull together, we're going to make it a better place.
Sounds good to me. Okay. Any final thoughts or takeaways here?
No, just stay tuned for next week and listen to This Week with Wendy wherever you like to get your podcasts best.